Discussing Film put out a tweet at the end of last week about a bidding war that has begun for the rights to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We know of at least 5 studios involved. There could be more that we just don't know about, but these are the 5 that we do know about. We know that Monkey Paw, which is Jordan Peele, Taylor Sheridan with Paramount, Osgood Perkins with Neon, Glenn Powell and A24 and Netflix are all bidding on the rights to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Now, knowing that those are currently the 5 players in this process, how are you feeling about that? Do you feel good about it, bad about it? Do you have questions, concerns, thoughts? Randy, we'll start with you.
Considering I haven't seen all the movies, but the fact that we actually have decent studios vying for the rights, I think it's a good idea. I think it's good. It's one of the big classics that it seems like for more often than not, it doesn't get proper treatment sometimes. And I feel like if we can get at least one of them to just kind of really care about the product and the story and the character and really put some heart into it, I think you have a really good chance of reviving such a classic horror villain as Leatherface. So I think I can't wait to see what happens here with this.
Sean?
Look, first off, I've seen a lot of nonsense posts about not Netflix again. The Netflix movie was terrible. That was what an albatross, and it was shit. But if you do your fact checking, you know that it was not Netflix that made that movie. Netflix acquired that movie, which was already in abysmal shape, did what they could to save it, and put it out on their product. I think Netflix deserves a shot at doing it properly. But would they be my first choice? Not necessarily, but I'll take any of the 4 that I have listed on this graphic over Neon. Look, Taylor Sheridan has his hands in so much. If you've watched Yellowstone or any of its spinoffs or
forthcoming spinoffs,
the Stallone show that I can't remember the name of, that's it. He does good work. One might argue he can't, get a good ending to save his life, except for maybe 1888 or whatever it was, 1883, 1888. I can't remember the title. The Tim McGraw one. That one, in my opinion, is the only good ending in the Yellowstone franchise. Obviously, there's some other circumstances that forced his hand in some of those other things. Jordan Peele, I know there's people going to roll their eyes and be like, oh, he's going to go woke, etc. Look, whether you like what Jordan Peele does or not, he makes high quality films with good writing. And I do think that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is in need of a little bit of elevated horror, if you will. And then my man crush, sorry, Jade, if you're watching, Glenn Powell. I will jump on a plane right now. Save me a spot. Love me some Glenn Powell. He doesn't only want to help produce it, he wants to star in it. And the one, I'd be curious to hear what the chat thinks of this. The reason I find him intriguing is the studio who's bidding on this with him is A24. Well, what else does A24 own the rights to? A series that we're about to talk about in 2 segments, Crystal Lake. And I'm not saying you necessarily get your Jason versus Leatherface. I don't know if I'd want a story like that. But to have both exist in the same universe, to have them referenced, to have deeper level of storytelling, maybe have a protagonist that appears in both, I think there's a level of interest there that really intrigues me. And Glenn Powell people. Give me Glenn Powell versus Leatherface. Now, I don't want Glenn Powell as Leatherface. I don't know if that works for me. But give me Glenn Powell in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's where I want. But, realistically, any of these 4 is a good fit. With our luck, it'll be Neon or someone else that gets it. But they certainly have 4 really good creators who might end up landing this franchise, and that excites me. I'm also, in the minority of saying the Michael Bay movie is my favorite. better than the original, better than 2. I loved that Michael Bay movie. I think it was 2003 it came out.
I believe so.
So yeah, my question to you two is, who do you want? If you're a betting man, not who you think, but who would you like to end up with the rights to see TCM?
Well, let me get my thoughts out of the way first before we get to that. But I think that, like you said, there's 4 qualified candidates here, and then I cannot wrap my head around the big dorky nerd from Legally Blonde as a horror movie guy. It just doesn't. I can't do it. I just. That's what he is to me. I googled his name because I didn't actually know it, and I looked up Osgood Perkins, the guy associated with the Neon. But as soon as I saw the picture, I was like, "That's the nerd from Legally Blonde." What? Like it just I can't do that one. Any of the rest though, I'm behind it. Like, I may not be necessarily a fan of Jordan Peele's horror films, but that's just a stylistic thing. But like Sean said, it's high quality. Like I can't argue the quality of content. Just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not great work. Taylor Sheridan, like you said, yeah, he's one of the busiest guys in Hollywood. Who would have ever thought that the deputy sheriff from Charming would go on to be one of the greatest storytellers out there? And I'd argue, yeah, his ending for Yellowstone kind of sucked, but his hand was forced in such a degree that I don't really hold him responsible for that so much as the storytelling leading up to it was all phenomenal, immaculate. And Glenn Powell, if you want to put a touch of
don't you dare say anything bad about Glenn Powell.
I don't have anything bad to say about
right
Glenn
now.
Powell.
I will go on strike. Episode 2.
I don't have anything bad to say about Glenn Powell. I think, he has a lot of things going for him right now. He is one of the hot names in Hollywood, which is a huge plus. And he has skill, which is something that I'd be excited to see, from a storytelling perspective. I don't know. I don't think he's had really a kick at the can from that side of the film yet that I can think of. So I don't know, maybe he has those skills, maybe he doesn't, but just getting him on screen, I think, is a huge boon to the possibilities of this franchise. And Netflix, again, just because, it's the studio and they don't have names attached doesn't mean they aren't going to get, someone great to go out there and do it. That's the important thing. It is all about who ends up, who's producing it, who's directing it, who's writing it, who's starring it. Those are all questions that we don't have answers to, which is really the only project that has those question marks. We at least have some idea of, who would at least be, starring or running the helm of the other projects. So it has the most question marks, but Netflix has been able to draw some great filmmakers. Not all of the products are great, but it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see all this. Back to your question that you asked, who do I want to get it? Oh man, it's hard to go against Glenn Powell in A24.
So this is definitely a really difficult choice, just because there is a lot of talent here that could potentially put out a really solid movie. Obviously, it feels like Netflix is trying to redeem themselves for purchasing the one movie and putting it out on their own, and they clearly feel like they've got something more to offer. But my pick is gonna be Jordan Peele, just because I want to see, like you said, high class horror. So I'm really curious to see what type of treatment he would put on this, and how he would actually write the other characters as well. I would hope they were not as just dumb flailing teens as we've seen in a lot of slasher movies in the past, and we know that wouldn't be the case, but I think it would just be real interesting to give him a crack at a legend and see if he can bring it back